Hi, Sean. How are you?
Good, Adam. How are you?
Good, thank you. Here, just getting set up. I know you're just a touch early, but
Yeah.
all right. I guess you brushed against this yesterday, but it's kind of a national narrative, and I'm curious about your answer, so I'll ask it sort of again. The idea that your offense isn't at a championship caliber level, for lack of a better term, right now, that it isn't, necessarily doing enough or producing enough. And maybe just beyond this game, a tough weather game against the Jets, maybe kind of a more extended body of work. What's your take on that, on where things stand on that side of the ball?
Well, I think there's certainly room for improvement. I think there was definitely some things we did well, and we scored on 4 consecutive possessions against a very good defense. So I think there's definitely things you can take out of that game and say, we did some good things. But then obviously, from a needs improvement standpoint, there's things we can work on for sure.
Can you mention any in particular? Did you see it?
Well, I mentioned some of it last night. I mean, fundamentally dropping we dropped some passes, and so we were just a little bit out of sync at times yesterday. So a lot to improve on.
Last from me, 4 straight wins. You're in a position to take a very significant step in terms of your position in the division on Saturday night. You've been through a lot to kind of get to this point. I guess, what's your message to the team in terms of the opportunity that is in front of them now this weekend?
Yeah, against a good football team that beat us the first go around down there, and we're at home this week, and just like any week, it's an opportunity to focus one week at a time and get ourselves ready to go to play our best football. That's really what our intent is.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Coach, the pressure that you were able to get from AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau and just their performance in yesterday's game, how does that help the defense as a whole when you have 2 younger guys who are really stepping up in a void with Von Miller out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, that's big, Maddie. It's, and it's never one guy. It's really a some of the parts type of deal when you're talking about the defensive line, right? So they rush together. They have to rush together in order to get to the quarterback. Occasionally you get a isolated one-on-one win, but it's all got to be coordinated. And I think they've really done a good job of preparing with Coach Washington to execute the game plan during the week and then executing come game time.
And then how have you seen their consistency so far this season? I know Greg missed a couple of games there, but since he's been healthy, he's looked very consistent on the field. So what does that consistency do for the defense as a whole when you're getting what you need out of some younger players?
Yeah, that's important. It's very important because, we pride ourselves in, or part of our messaging is, do your 111th, do your job, and be accountable for your 111th. And so when you're doing your job and you're consistent, that builds trust and it builds the execution level that we needed to be at in order for us to win games.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, I know Maddie just asked about AJ and Greg, but I wanted to ask about DaQuan on the interior and what you've seen from him these last couple of weeks, and I guess the season as a whole.
Yeah, I thought he was really cutting it loose yesterday. Good to see. It's extremely important to DaQuan. He's a pro in every sense of the word. He's very conscientious, very detailed in his preparation and very thorough. And then he went out there yesterday and really cut loose and really trusted his instincts and his preparation, which was fun to watch.
As you get ready for a team that you've already played this year, you've kind of had this little stretch of divisional games. What areas have you seen the Dolphins take strides? Because obviously they've, really improved their play this season.
Well, they have a tremendous amount of explosive plays. When you have that type of speed and athleticism, you're going to have some of those. And you saw the play last night, just recovering a fumble, and Tyreek takes it to the house, with nobody even near him. So tremendous amount of athleticism, speed. So they've done a great job.
And my last one, and I hate that I even have to ask it, but how much are you paying attention to the weather this week? I'm sick of talking about the weather, Sean.
Yeah. It's always a part of it, right? And we're in Western New York here, always a part of our preparation. And looks like we could get some snow. So we'll just keep an eye on it as we move through the week.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, just wanted to check generally, did you have any injury updates coming out of yesterday's game, particularly Ryan Bates?
Yeah, Bates will be day to day with an ankle.
And anyone else working through anything?
Yeah, Ed has a chest. He'll be day to day, and then Reggie and Jordan Phillips are both improving.
Thanks. And then Matt Milano, you mentioned last night how he's been pushing through a lot. So many guys are. Obviously, it's been a particularly banged up year for you guys, but just to follow up on more from Matt, just what have you seen out of him over this stretch? I know he's done so much for you guys in the past, but particularly navigating that and making big plays at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that takes mental toughness. It takes a certain level of professionalism and accountability, because he's not been getting the reps during practice as much as when he's healthy. And so now, there's trust baked into that, where he's getting himself ready. He's putting the time in through walkthroughs or through his preparation, after hours, and making sure he's ready to go to perform at a high level for his teammates.
Is there anything you've learned from him new out of this stretch? When you mentioned that trust, I'm sure that was there before, but just, is there anything, I don't know, that you've seen different of him as he's worked through that?
I mean, playing with an injury is not easy, right? I mean, there's a mental part that goes into that, also a physical part. You spend a lot of time in the training room, and it takes sometimes a little bit of time away from your preparation in terms of watching film and whatnot. So it's just that balance of, being able to handle that part of it in terms of his body, and then also get his mind ready to play.
Thanks, Sean.
Yep.
Hey, Sean. I want to ask you about Kyer. How, obviously we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. You've obviously been watching him out at practice. How has he kind of responded coming off the injury, and just in general, how have you seen him producing in practice and performing in practice the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, Kyer is always working hard and putting in the work to get himself ready to go and prepared. And, like a lot of our other young players, he continues to, work at his craft and making sure he's working and learning the techniques that we want used and utilized in the certain schemes that we run. And, he works every week to improve his game.
And then, obviously he's had a chance now the last couple of weeks, now that Trey's back, to kind of watch him, operate on game days throughout the week. He's been doing it for months, since he's been practicing. But what has that been like from your vantage point, watching him get to kind of just observe Trey go out there and do his thing, and especially now playing 100% of the snaps?
Yeah. And when you're a young player and you get a veteran player that's had success at your position, you've got a front row seat to watch how they do things, just like you said, Matt. And that's important, that you soak everything in. You try and get in their hip pocket in terms of when they're in the building, when they leave, what their progression during the day looks like, and then what they do when they leave at night. So, like I said, that's a great example for a young player.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Coach, Buki Hawkins, Waffle Sports Cincinnati. How you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Victory Monday, Coach. Victory Monday, 4 weeks in a row. After watching film, Coach, is it safe to say offensively that you were too much finesse rather than having a physical approach in the elements yesterday?
Well, I mean, you want to be physical, whether it's elements or not. And that's how you play football. And so we talk a lot about that in terms of being a physical team, trying to control the line of scrimmage. And but it's also goes into not just the line of scrimmage, but just how we play overall, whether it's contested catches, playing strong through the catch. So there's a lot of examples of that.
Yes, sir. And Josh spoke last week on not throwing in practice. Do you think that's attributing to these slow starts?
Josh is throwing in practice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see that as a factor, really.
Okay, absolutely. And other than the block punt, Coach, care to talk about Sam Martin and Saran Neal's play, your special teams overall?
Yeah, other than that block punt, I thought we did some really solid things yesterday on special teams against a good returner, in particular in Barrios there, who's had a lot of success over the years and does a great job.
Absolutely, Coach. I know you have a great week, such a short one, but have a good one.
You too.
Hey, Sean, I wanted to ask a bit about Damar Hamlin too. I know you touched some last night on the forced fumble, but how big was the timing of that on top of just the play itself at that point in the game?
Yeah, that was huge. And it just goes to show you finish plays the right way. You get around the football. Like I said, I think I said that last night, good things happen, and you play with violent hands, good things tend to happen.
Where have you seen Damar grow the most this season now that it's a larger sample size?
I just think through experience, as you said, a larger sample size, you get a chance to kind of, see the overall body of work. Much work remains, and he's got to stay focused on his process and growing every week. And I'm sure he would tell you there's certain areas of his game that he wants to improve on. But at the same time, he made a huge play in that game yesterday in a one-score football game.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, you've been rotating corners a lot this year, whether it be alongside Dane or now alongside Trey. How much of a need is there to find one guy at some point to go with and say, this is going to be our starter, this is going to be the number 2, or can you rotate and do it this way all the way through the regular season and hopefully the postseason?
No, ideally, Fed, you've got, a guy locked in over there. So, we're still obviously working on that, and we'll continue to work on it until we find it.
Is it more important the way you guys play a little more zone defense where communication is a little more important? Obviously, every secondary communication is vital, but is that having that same guy in there, is that a little more important the way you guys do it?
I mean, continuity, ideally you have continuity where, you've got 11 guys, obviously you're rolling the defensive linemen, but the rest of the players are rather consistent in terms of who plays what position.